Aita for considering divorcing my husband after he left my kids and me while on a family vacation. Background details. I am a woman in my 40s, a wife and mother who has been married for over 10 years and has been with my husband for 15 years. We have 2 children under the age of 10, and we both hold demanding jobs outside the home. Our families are located about an 8-hour drive or a 2 to 4-hour flight away. Late last year, I organized a trip to visit several longtime friends in a rented house for New Year's. I took care of all the logistics and financial responsibilities, including booking an appropriate rental car, arranging boarding for our family pet, doing laundry, and packing for myself and the children. Additionally, I paid our family's share of the rental house and coordinated with friends we were planning to meet. I was also responsible for the driving during the 500-mile journey, as my husband dislikes driving, allowed his license to expire, and has shown no interest in renewing it. On the day of the trip, I woke up before dawn to finalize our preparations while my husband slept until 8 or 9 a.m. There were numerous tasks that needed to be completed before we could leave, such as finishing the laundry and packing, taking out the trash, loading the car with our luggage and snacks, preparing breakfast for the children, cleaning the kitchen, turning off the Christmas lights, and placing the pet in its carrier. Once my husband finally woke up, he packed his belongings and helped with the family breakfast, but then returned to a passive role while I hurried to finish everything. I requested his assistance with a few tasks, which he performed reluctantly before stepping out for a walk. We eventually set out for what turned into a grueling drive. The typical 8 to 9 hour journey ended up stretching to 13 hours due to traffic conditions. This would have been a challenging trip for 2 drivers, but it felt unbearable since I bore the entire responsibility for the driving. It was so exhausting that I opted to book one-way flights for our return journey instead of driving the rental car back. The stress of the challenging road trip diminished as our week-long getaway with friends commenced. I genuinely enjoyed reconnecting with people I rarely see and felt comfortable with everyone except my husband. Although these friends have also shared a relationship with my husband for 10 to 20 years and have celebrated significant life moments together, he seemed withdrawn and unfriendly toward me and those he had previously connected with. He stated during the drive that he would need to work during our vacation and brought his laptop along. I did not anticipate this being a problem, particularly as many others in our group were also working remotely, including a physician friend conducting patient consultations, a creative friend developing a screenplay via Zoom, and a scientist participating in meetings. A few days into the vacation, I received an email from the airline concerning our flight schedule. It indicated that our flights were rescheduled to depart 3 days earlier than planned and from a different airport. As I read the email while sitting on a couch with 2 friends across from me, my husband was situated about 20 feet behind them on the opposite end of the room. I remarked on the email, assuming there had been a mistake, and my husband replied, "Oh, I did that." That straightforward statement revealed he had altered his flight arrangements, only his, so he could leave from the nearest airport midway through the week, returning home without us. I was taken aback, and my disbelief was evident, prompting the couple across from me to glance at me incredulously and silently mouth, "WTF." I was shocked that he would make such a unilateral decision to abandon the children and me midweek without prior notice or discussion. I responded to my husband with, "Thanks for telling me," and inquired about his reasoning. He explained he needed to leave to fulfill work obligations because he deemed the internet connection at the house insufficient for his professional requirements. I excused myself and immediately called my sister, who is also my closest friend, to share what had happened. She confirmed that his behavior was inappropriate, as did the friends who witnessed the exchange. As news of the situation spread through the house, our mutual friends also expressed their disbelief. I felt unable to confront my husband about it, as even simple conversations between us can devolve into arguments. Historically, he tends to be passive and provides minimal responses. "Okay, sounds good," or escalates the issue dramatically, displaying rage in his body language and facial expressions. Although he has never been physically violent, the unpredictability of his angry reactions has made me feel as though I constantly tread carefully when raising concerns. Several hours later, he returned with our children in wet swimsuits. After I helped them shower and change, he briefly entered the room we were sharing. As he was leaving, I approached him with the wet swimsuits and assertively said, "Can you please take these outside?" He replied, "You could have asked me nicely." I retorted, "You could have informed me you were leaving early. I'm finished." After that exchange, we did not communicate, though my older child approached me to share that they were aware their father was departing. This deeply affected me because I am a product of divorced parents who would utilize me to relay messages to each other. I found it utterly distressing that my husband would discuss his plans with a school-aged child but neglect to inform me, his partner. Despite the presence of many children, I took our kids to my family's home for New Year's Eve, allowing us to stay up late and enjoy time with friends. I distanced myself from my husband, who became heavily intoxicated and behaved as if he had experienced a sudden personality change. I later learned he had taken mushrooms. He left the following day with a brief goodbye and did not inform many others in the house of his departure, including one of his closest friends from college. The children and I managed well for the rest of the trip, as I am accustomed to handling situations independently. However, those who remained close to me were appalled by my husband's actions, labeling him as selfish at the very least or a narcissist at worst. Disclosures and side notes: I struggle with ADHD and feelings of overwhelm. He often expresses non-verbal annoyance and frustration toward me, but rarely communicates it verbally. Our relationship is fraught with tension and has not been in a good place for several years now. We resemble roommates who co-parent rather than a couple, and we no longer share a bed. There is a significant lack of both physical and emotional intimacy in our marriage, and I have often questioned whether he is cheating, which he denies, or if he might be gay. Regarding driving, we reside in a large city, and he typically relies on public transportation and Uber for his travel needs. This issue creates tension between us since I am left to manage all driving for family activities that occur outside areas where public transport or Uber is convenient. I have also felt this imbalance acutely during medical emergencies. I drove myself to the hospital while in labor and had to call in a relative to help, as he was unable to take me for surgery last year. We often find ourselves at odds over various matters. He can be inflexible and immature, lacking empathy at times. Communication is a significant issue in our relationship. Last year, I suggested that we begin couples therapy, and we attended a few sessions with a Gottman therapist, which were ultimately unproductive. The key takeaways revealed that my husband tends to stonewall and display contempt and criticism, while I respond defensively. The New Year's gathering followed my recent lumpectomy late last year. He provided minimal support during that period and barely inquired about how I was feeling or how he could assist me as I navigated months of medical appointments to determine if I had breast cancer, which turned out to be benign. My coworkers, immediate family, and close friends were supportive, but it felt painfully disappointing that he was so indifferent during such a significant time. I confronted him on this during our last session with our previous couples therapist, and he responded by saying he had not asked about it because he perceived my updates as too clinical. He did not apologize at that moment when I highlighted his consistent lack of support, but instead delivered his usual non-apology. "I'm sorry you feel that way. We are set to begin discernment therapy this week. I have largely remained in this marriage to prevent disrupting our family, yet it seems we cannot recover from this situation. He appears unaware that I am contemplating separation or divorce, and I have not shared my thoughts with him, fearing his reaction. I currently see a therapist who is aware of my circumstances and offers substantial support, but I wanted to reach out to others to see if anyone has faced similar challenges and how they managed them. Any advice would be appreciated." Story 2. Lost my health insurance at 26, stuck in a dead-end job, and haunted by past trauma. Life feels like endless disappointment. An entire decade has passed, and it hasn't even improved the upcoming one. I feel as though I have mostly surrendered to life, yet I am still overwhelmed with despair. Suicide crosses my mind as a potential escape if or when circumstances worsen. You have time. It's never too late. Those are merely lies. As we age, it does become more challenging, so yes, you may find time running out. Moreover, eventually, everyone dies. No one is immortal. For over a decade, I have been sharing thoughts like these. Everything seems pointless, devoid of value, and utterly futile. Individuals with degrees cannot even secure a better job than the one I have been trapped in. What hope do I possibly have? I can hardly gather my thoughts, making communication exceedingly difficult. Artificial intelligence appears to be improving the world, making it much easier, particularly with self-driving vehicles. I never managed to master driving and have completely given up on the idea. It would just be a constant struggle to prevent accidents until the day I die. However, I have already witnessed a self-driving car operating without a human driver in real life, suggesting it is advancing quickly. I genuinely hope AI will fully automate driving, even if it doesn't take over other areas. I absolutely despise society's dependency on manually operating machines at life-threatening speeds daily, and I am tired of the constant stream of car accidents. I remain employed at the only job I haven't been terminated from, primarily because it fortunately provides health insurance for the medications I have relied on for most of my life. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, mood stabilizers, another for uncontrollable rage outbursts that began suddenly 11 years ago, and another for suddenly severe and worsening nightmares. I was removed from my parents' health insurance upon turning 26, as everyone is under U.S. law. Consequently, I feel even more trapped in this fruitless job. I cannot seem to achieve anything better. I cannot adequately articulate the worst torments I endure. I cannot provide evidence of their existence. They are supposedly demonic and biblical, yet I cannot prove them. I'm unsure if God truly comprehends or cares why I cannot mindlessly abandon everything that ever held significance to me and follow him like an unthinking robot. I'm doubtful he even sympathizes with my experiences or grasps human emotions. Despite the hardships of my life, my relatively privileged existence is significantly worsened by invisible malevolent forces that attack and attempt to control my mind. I swear on my soul, I have genuinely experienced physical possession. At 14 or 15, I was awakened and compelled to leap from my bed, bark like a dog, and scream, with only my parents witnessing this event. It only ceased in response to desperate prayers begging God to intervene. There is absolutely no logical, scientific, or psychological explanation for that episode, and no one will ever truly believe me. Even if they do, they will be wholly convinced it was demonic possession, while I still harbor doubts about what it genuinely was. I primarily search for ways to earn money online since opportunities in real life feel unreachable for me, or lead only to a dead-end life of poverty, as is the case with most jobs. I used to believe that it would improve, that having a job was the solution. I was told to persevere. Yet, all that has occurred is that I have become stuck at the very bottom in a position that doesn't lead to any advancement, and I lost several jobs prior to this, regardless of my efforts. I have never had a girlfriend or experienced intimacy, which was once paramount to me. However, I have largely stopped thinking about it because it seems so distant. I'm struggling just to figure out how to survive independently, let alone handle the essentials. Thus, I have largely dismissed that desire. I would be fortunate not to remain a virgin at 35 or 40, and most relationships, for the majority of people, end in infidelity, rendering the prospect even more hopeless. I don't even feel inclined to watch adult content or engage in those activities anymore, as it feels pathetic and serves no purpose. My view of the internet has shifted from a wondrous realm of opportunity to an arena filled with scams and clickbait. I have fallen for a few of these traps in the past. Even if opportunities like affiliate marketing or dropshipping might strike it rich, most things in life rely on luck, and everyone is competing for the same things. It can take years to see a scant profit. I find it challenging to muster motivation for that anymore. Any standard job, if I can even secure and retain one, would just be a cycle of poverty. Schedules are beyond your control. You trade your hours for perhaps a few $100s each week or a couple of thousand each month. Your earnings have a ceiling, and it isn't scalable. I struggled with mathematics throughout my entire education. I never truly grasped it. Sometimes, I would somehow arrive at the correct answer, but they would insist that I hadn't arrived at it in the right way. Their method made no sense whatsoever, just a jumble of numbers and letters in math, mixed together, zigzagging this way, jumping to that, or transforming into something else seemingly out of thin air. As a result, I feel completely hopeless regarding skills like coding and programming. It also appears pointless because large language models and AI can already comprehend English instructions logically, so I don't understand why it should be done in a convoluted manner. I doubt that this will continue. I never understood the tools I grew up with. The ones that seemed to finally facilitate a more natural, human approach to life didn't appear until I was already entering my 30s, if not older. My timing in life feels dreadful. I should have been born at least 20 to 30 years later, if I had to be born at all. I attempted community college, but ultimately discontinued my studies because I realized I didn't even care about the major I selected, especially since AI is already beginning to automate it. I couldn't realistically see myself commuting downtown to a university or affording to live there after completing 2 years of coursework. I was supposed to transfer after that to obtain the real, full degree. I lost a substantial amount of money in cryptocurrency. A few years back, I managed to save over $10,000, and now I am down to barely over $3,000. I cannot save anything while paying my parents a few $100s each month and regularly accumulating hundreds of dollars in credit card debt. I couldn't afford a car, even if I could drive. I cannot generate income through online endeavors, nor can I through traditional employment. Jobs are essentially scams as well, and even individuals with bachelor's and master's degrees are ending up with menial jobs like bagging groceries, pushing carts, stocking shelves, and frying food. Without any degree, what hope do I hold? My parents are likely planning to retire in a few years and may even seek to live off the grid. I don't wish to return to that kind of life, even if I could. Homelessness is a permanent state. I witness it daily. It truly does get too late. You don't always have time, and it isn't worth the effort when things become as dire as that, especially when you have seemingly failed while having it easier than that. I do not believe there is any magical solution to my situation, and even those who have achieved far more than I have find themselves in similar circumstances, so what chance do I possibly have? I was making AI-related videos, but the cost is prohibitively high, and honestly, the possibilities are quite limited. The pricing structure caters to affluent individuals and businesses. At $200 a month, still requiring time to create and relying on an algorithm to potentially promote your videos, leading to uncertain views or subscriptions, I no longer derive pleasure from the process of making them. I genuinely desire only the quickest results, which reflects the state of my life. I am also fed up with constantly getting sick, as COVID has severely damaged my immune system and my physical health. I increasingly contemplate ending my life over progressively trivial matters. Life feels like an enormous disappointment, akin to haphazardly throwing things at a wall, hoping for luck. I understand how this randomness and aimlessness can apply to becoming wealthy, but why is the process of simply making a basic living income so chaotic and reliant on chance? I'm no closer to progress than I was a decade ago. However, I am indeed 10 years closer to death and to reaching a point of no return, with little chance of escape. Story 3. My 30M relationship feels like an emotional roller coaster, sometimes with my GF 28F. What should I do about this? We have been in a romantic relationship for approximately 8 months now, and we just moved in together at the start of February. We share a high level of compatibility in numerous aspects, including our sense of humor, strong sexual chemistry, similar values regarding work, finances, and family, as well as shared hobbies. Most of the time, everything is wonderful, but at times, I feel like this relationship can be quite erratic and unstable, as if I never know what to expect next or what is truly happening in her mind or within our relationship. The first instance I noted this was in December. We were both in the midst of moving, and she was in search of a new job that would likely influence her location. As a self-employed individual, I have the flexibility to work entirely remotely. I was headed to Denver and expressed my desire for her to find a job there, as I had already signed a 6-month lease and was committed to that plan. She mentioned that she disliked the idea of following me, so I suggested relocating to wherever she ended up since my work allows me to operate from any location. She then revealed that she had previously done this with an ex, and it had not turned out well. Given that we were only 5 months into our relationship, I assumed she was not taking things too seriously. Later, during a more serious conversation, she disclosed that she had actually been waiting for me to invite her to move in with me. I was completely unaware that this was on her mind, but I was pleasantly surprised and agreed. It felt as though it had come out of nowhere, and I interpreted everything she had previously said as indicating this isn't too serious, rather than let's move in together. 2 weeks later, we were prepared to move. We had discussed everything: rent, chores, cooking, and it all felt exhilarating, as if we were embarking on an adventure together. Everything appeared to be in order as we hit the road in both of our cars. That night, we met at a hotel halfway to Denver. She appeared very upset, almost in tears, and I had no clue what was happening. Everything had seemed perfectly fine in the 2 weeks leading up to this moment. It took about an hour to encourage her to open up, and she shared that she was anxious about her finances. She had been without a job for 2 months, depleted her savings, and after consulting her best friend, was seriously contemplating moving back in with her mother rent-free instead of living with me. This revelation caught me off guard. She had never mentioned financial stress to this extent before. She had just started a job with an annual salary of $140,000, and her share of the rent was only $1,200. It felt as though she was suddenly withdrawing from our plan for a reason I had never even considered. When I inquired if her concerns were related to our relationship, she insisted it was purely financial. To alleviate her stress, I proposed to cover her rent for the first 3 months in exchange for her managing household responsibilities such as laundry, dishes, grocery shopping, cooking, and cleaning. Since I run my own business and earn $300,000 a year, the arrangement was sensible to me, and financially, it was not a burden. She agreed, and we moved in as scheduled. What truly troubled me was how this concern had surfaced unexpectedly. In the 2 weeks leading up to the move, there had been no indications of financial strain. Suddenly, she was questioning everything. It made me feel as though our plans were never as secure as I had believed, and that a simple conversation with her friend had caused her so much stress that she was ready to withdraw. The most recent incident, and the reason I am writing this, unfolded over the past 9 days. She traveled out of town last Friday and is returning tonight. It was a combination of leisure and work, as she was visiting 3 different locations. We enjoyed a small date night together on Thursday before her departure, during which we had a semi-serious discussion to check in on our relationship. She expressed that everything seemed to be going well, that we were adjusting to one another, and that she felt supported and loved. However, the following day, just 16 hours after our discussion, she began messaging me from the airport, claiming that she actually did not feel very loved or supported, and began addressing some significant issues she believes we have. That evening, she went out with her friends, discussed these feelings, and it escalated into a major crisis in which she questioned whether we might not be compatible on a fundamental level. Our relationship felt rock solid on Thursday night, yet by Friday night, it seemed we were in crisis mode, despite nothing substantial changing. It took us 3 days of conversations and texting, mind you, she was away throughout this time, to work through it all. During that interval, I was left wondering if this was the end. Did she genuinely believe we were incompatible, and what was motivating this sudden shift? After 4 days, we finally reached some breakthroughs and devised solutions to the supposed problems. Following that, our relationship felt incredible for about 3 days. It felt like our bond had never been stronger, and I felt a deep sense of connection with her. Then yesterday, she asked me to check the fridge for an Instacart grocery order so she would know what to purchase. I had unexpectedly made arrangements to meet some friends and was short on time. She sent me a text while I was at the gym, and upon my return, I had roughly 30 minutes before I needed to leave again. I had intended to check the fridge at that time. However, when I got home, I discovered that our garage door had malfunctioned and had been opened, leading to a homeless individual looting our garage. They likely took around 1,000 worth of items. This was quite distressing and deeply affected me. Consequently, I dealt with that situation and then rushed out the door to meet my friends, for which I was already 15 minutes late. In all the chaos, I completely forgot to check the fridge. My plans with my friends turned into a lengthy affair. She texted me again about the groceries, and I informed her that I was out with my friends but would check when I returned home. 2 to 3 hours later, I came back and let her know what was in the fridge. I had another social obligation shortly afterward, so I promptly left the house again right after updating her. About 30 minutes later, she asked me a question regarding the groceries. I replied that I was not home but would check when I got back. She initially asked me to check around 8 a.m., yet she didn't have all the information until 4 p.m. Last night, she exploded in anger over this situation. She became extremely upset, claiming that it felt as if I were dismissing her. She expressed that she needed my assistance for a mere 30 seconds to get groceries done, yet I could not manage that, which made her feel unvalued. I explained how chaotic my day had been and pushed back slightly, asserting that it felt unfair for her to react so strongly over this issue. She countered by saying that she had been traveling for 8 days, was stressed and exhausted, and desperately needed to get this completed so she could check it off her list. It devolved into a massive argument, and I am now uncertain about where we stand. She is expected to return home today. This morning, I sent her a text apologizing, admitting that I was somewhat inconsiderate, which I was indeed. But a part of me feels that I should not have to apologize, as my actions, while frustrating for her, do not seem like a significant matter. In summary, I am experiencing a sense of anxiety because I am often unaware of what to expect next. I have no idea how she will react upon returning home today, or what thoughts occupy her mind. I have communicated that she needs to be more open with me regarding the things that upset her, and she has made some attempts, though not nearly enough. Although we share a great deal of compatibility, I cannot sustain a relationship that feels like an emotional roller coaster. Do you have any suggestions on how to navigate this? In summary, my girlfriend and I appear to be fantastic one moment, and the next day, she raises significant concerns or issues with me or our relationship that I was mostly oblivious to, which creates significant anxiety since I never know what tomorrow may bring. The relationship feels highly unpredictable. Story 4. My family pushes me in sports, ignores my achievements, and my brother bullies me relentlessly. Aita am drained and craving freedom. I am a 16-year-old transgender female, and I have carried this burden for far too long. I'm uncertain whether I am merely an overreacting teenager or genuinely facing a serious issue at this point. To provide context, I live with my family, which includes my mother, father, and brother, and we see our grandfather almost every day. Another crucial detail is my history in sports. When I was younger, I participated in swimming, athletics, and soccer too, of which I was not particularly good at. I eventually dropped soccer for Australian rules football, but I quit that when the pandemic began. Currently, I compete in 3 sports: athletics, swimming, and life-saving, where I have achieved national recognition in life-saving and open water swimming. I train for life-saving once a week on Sundays and swim 8 times a week, waking up at 4:45 a.m. on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and at 5:50 a.m. on Saturdays, in addition to swimming on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. Each of these sessions lasts 2 hours. Now that the background information is out of the way, I feel like I have spent a considerable portion of my life trying to make my parents proud. During my time playing Australian rules football, they made remarks about how other parents expected their children to become star players who would turn professional, and they expressed relief that I did not have such expectations placed on me. Whenever I achieved something in sports, they undermined my accomplishments by failing to congratulate me on personal bests and immediately suggesting new goals. They often compared me to my brother, who has always excelled in sports, especially in swimming. When he was in year 9, he participated in his first national-level event, which I was compelled to attend against my will, merely to watch him. Since then, I have been taken all over Australia to observe my brother in swimming competitions. My parents often claim they do not expect me to be as skilled as him. However, they also vehemently encourage me to reach his level. The only exception is life-saving, as I am the only one in the family who participates in it. But even then, my parents find some unrelated behavior of mine to criticize instead of acknowledging my achievements, such as my lack of sociability and the fact that I spend a considerable amount of my time on my phone in front of them. All of this may not seem excessively troubling, but it serves only as an introduction to a more significant issue with my family. Being somewhat pushy about sports could be tolerable if that were the only concern, but it isn't. I have no issues with my dad, other than the fact that he allows my mom and brother to behave poorly. The problem with my brother is that he bullies me, and not in the typical older brother, little sibling manner. He always takes it too far. He constantly steals and breaks my belongings, directs slurs at me continuously. I am still in the closet regarding my sexuality, yet he openly tells people in the most uncomfortable and inappropriate way that I am a gay man when I am not. And when we are near water, he pushes me or flips the inflatable I am on, despite my expressed desire to be left alone. He consistently escalates situations beyond what is necessary, and then calls me an autistic baby when I react upset. As for my mother, she is the most miserable, egocentric person I know. When I was about 5 years old and playing with equipment at sports, she would make a scene about me needing to stop, and when I inquired why, she would become angry about how I was embarrassing her in front of others. Throughout my life, she has always reacted unreasonably to anything I have done or failed to do. I was a well-behaved child, but when I was 10, I received an amber warning letter, which is just one level below suspension. To evade punishment, I attempted to forge her signature, got caught, and rightfully faced her anger. Nevertheless, she spent the entire night forcing me to sit next to her while she searched for juvenile prisons for me, claiming, "That's where I will end up in life." In year 9, when I confided in her that I was being bullied at school, she spent 2 hours berating me for making myself an easy target. My mother has gone so far as to tell me to be grateful that she doesn't send me to a therapist to get me drugged. Even though nearly everyone I have met in my life recognizes that I may have some type of disorder, I likely have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder since I easily lose focus and struggle with basic tasks, yet I am not a medical professional and won't self-diagnose. Most recently, 2 years ago, I asked her to allow me to quit swimming because I despise the sport and do not enjoy it, to which she responded by insisting that I like it and should continue because they want what is best for me. Subsequently, my parents changed my swimming schedule to what it is now. This situation is creating countless problems for me as I am graduating school this year. I turned 17 this year and was born before the Australian cutoff date of July 31. Because of swimming, I lack the time and motivation to study. I fall asleep in one class every day, and in 3 of the 6 subjects I am taking, I have not received a mark above 50. The issue is not that I struggle with these subjects, as I scored 51 out of 56 on a recent math assignment I submitted a week early due to a hiking trip. I have asked my mother if I could skip one of the afternoon swimming sessions to focus on schoolwork, but she has a meltdown, accusing me of being lazy. With multiple events approaching, I feel I must train to excel. I am utterly exhausted. It feels as though I have been robbed of the past 16 years of my life. I cannot reach out to another family member for help, as the only close relative who lives apart from us is my grandfather, who always reminds me that they are my family, and I must love them. I feel like my mother has never regarded me as her child, but rather as a means to vicariously pursue her dream of becoming a professional athlete. I worry that I will not pass this year and will miss out on university and my dream careers in engineering or software fields. I feel immense resentment toward my family for failing to provide the support I need. I apologize if this post is convoluted or contains many spelling errors. This is my first attempt at expressing my feelings in this manner, and I am too mentally exhausted to proofread. However, I cannot keep this to myself any longer, or I fear I may do something drastic.